protecting our community is worth a shot. Vaccines can help protect you, your family, and our community. Stop by James Drugstore today.
And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. This is our special edition group therapy. It's where we sit down, the three of us editors here at the Livingston Parish News, to talk about what's going on in the parish. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. I'm going to ask these two gentlemen to take a second to introduce themselves so we can put a voice to a name. And we're going to start with, I always play this game, who knows who's going to go first? The gentleman on my and the viewer's left, please.
So that would be me, I guess. Yeah, this is Rob DeArmond. I'm the sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
And on the right.
And this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the news.
And thank you guys, and we appreciate you being here. First and foremost, David, we're going to start with you. You got your sort of first taste of covering court. It's kind of interesting when you're a journalist because you can't have a phone, you can't have a computer, and you're just kind of sitting there for a long time. But this was an important case, and we did. The man was found guilty, so we're still waiting for a sentencing, I believe. But I want you to walk us through what the whole purpose of the case and what it was like spending those 2 days in court.
Well, I mean, you're unplugged from your laptop or phone for 16 hours over 2 days, so that was weird. But other than that, I mean, no, it was the case against Errol Hicks, the state's case versus Mr. Errol Hicks, who's 70 years old, and it came after an incident in September 2019 when the night that he shot his ex-girlfriend at the time, shot her 4 times, once in the chest, once in the back, once in the top of the head, and another time in the leg. So this case was a long time coming. I mean, the family members, I spoke with a lot of them over the last week, and they, it's been something they've been waiting for. The jury, after the actual testimony and trial part, lasted better part of 2 days. 1 full day, and then part of the second day. Then the jury went into deliberation around 12:35, and then about 1:45 they came back out with the guilty verdict of second-degree murder, which would, like you said, sentencing has not been announced yet. It will be set at a later date, but second-degree murder carries a life sentence without the possibility of parole. So it's looking like Mr. Hicks will probably spend the rest of his life behind bars, but yeah, just an emotional time for the family. There were 17 witnesses called during the 2 days. You had neighbors, forensics experts, DNA analysts, detectives that worked the scene. Mr. Hicks declined to testify. He was scheduled to testify, but after the lunch recess on the second day, his attorney informed Judge Brian Abels that he was going to exercise his Fifth Amendment right to not testify, and so that's kind of what happened. And they went into closing arguments after that, and like I said, it took the jury about an hour, 10 minutes to come back with the guilty verdict.
So we'll be waiting for the full sentencing. Probably come out next week.
They didn't say, I think they said sometime in November they're going to have a pre-sentencing hearing. So okay. It might not be till later this year. Towards the end of this year when he's actually sentenced. But he was put back in handcuffs. I mean, he was present for both days during the trial in street clothes. But he was put in handcuffs after the verdict was read and led away. So, but yeah, sentencing will come probably later this year.
Okay, and we'll be, you'll be keeping an eye on that, and of course we'll have an update when we know. We're going to come back to you with some more news and lifestyle stuff in just a minute, but wanted to go ahead and discuss that. We're going to jump over to Rob. We are releasing this a little late this week. We had some scheduling conflicts, so we are going to be...
Trial.
Yeah, the trial, mainly, what we just discussed.
That's what it was.
So we're going to talk real quick about the football slate for tonight, because we're trying to get this video out on Friday afternoon before folks... rush on out to go check out these Friday night lights, and hopefully these games will conclude before the rain swoops in and brings in that cool
Don't mention
weather.
it. Don't. I'm trying
yeah,
to
right. I don't want to jinx it.
I don't want to jinx that. I don't want to do that. Yeah.
So
try to stay dry.
Let's start first and foremost. I believe the matchup that you both will be going to is up north there at Live Oak versus Walkers. Tell us a little bit about what those coaches are expecting for that matchup.
It's an interesting thing. Just to top it, everybody lost last week in Livingston Parish. So just to top it off, everybody's kind of looking for some momentum. So I think that's the biggest thing right now for both of these coaches is to just get that first district win. And talking to both of these coaches, that's the tough part right now. I mean, Coach Westmoreland said it's the tough part is getting that first win, and then probably the even tougher part is getting that first district win. As competitive as this district is, The kind of strange thing, I guess, is that both of these coaches, Coaches Mahaffey, as I've talked to him during the season, he's kind of harped on, okay, we need to get some consistent drives going. One of the things that kind of hurt them last week against Scotlandville, they tried. He said they tried 3 onside kicks, or they lost one to open the game, and then they tried 2 more, didn't get those. So hopefully he wants to kind of improve on that. That could be part of your game at some point during the season. So you want to kind of work with that, but it's trying to sustain drives for both of these teams, and they've been able to score on big plays. And I think that it's the same thing for Coach Westmoreland, and that's what they do. But against Zachary beat them on some big plays, and then Live Oak was able to score on big plays, which is not something that they really do. They want to kind of grind it out. So in talking to Coach Westmoreland, he said, being that both of them kind of want to, grind out the game, he's looking at the offensive and defensive fronts and trying to see how that kind of he's kind of considering that the matchup of the night to try to see how things go.
Sure. So we'll be y'all will be up north for that one. We'll be looking at Twitter for those updates. You can follow Rob there to get updates on the score if you can't make it out there. As David said, it's probably going to be crowded.
Yes.
Those intra-parish matchups tend to be. All 3 of those schools have a little bit of a rivalry between each other,
right.
Especially with the emergence of Walker lately. It's kind of an interesting dynamic shift every year. You never know which one of them is gonna emerge.
Right. You kind of had Live Oak kind of do it last year, and they wind up being the only team in the parish who makes the playoffs last year. So
right.
I didn't write the story in terms of payback, but I'm sure that's one that Walker's kind of looked at that said, okay, here we go. We got to go up to your place and try to get one here. So
sure. So moving down south, Denham is definitely going to be tested this week. They've got Zachary.
Yes. And last week it's 7-7 at halftime, and Central came out. They wound up winning. I think it was 34-7. Wound up being the final. They're in a situation where you guys know Reese Mooney broke his ankle a few weeks back. He had surgery, which means he's going to be out for the rest of the year. So there's a possibility. Coach Beard said they could wind up with Ryder Wygant, Jerry Horn, the freshman, or they could have Ray McNeely playing quarterback. So there's 3 guys just trying to figure out how they're going to do it, how it's going to work, trying to find what suits them best right now. They also lost Mason Edwards, who had a interception return for a touchdown last week for their only score. Broken leg, so he's out. So they're dealing with these injuries, and they're going to play Zachary. So
sure.
If you caught the Live Oak game last week, that was my first time seeing Zachary in a while. They've got a good team. They can hurt you a lot of different ways, and that's. But Coach Beers never shied away from that. He said, "Hey, look, if you want to try to turn this program around and you want to try to make some things happen here, you got to start somewhere, and this is as good a place as any to do it." So
sure.
Does Zachary ever not have a good team?
It was. It was interesting the way he described it. He said this
good every year I've been here.
He said this year, I was going to get into this. He said this year it's like you kind of look at the offensive line and you say maybe it's not the best offensive line that they had, and he said they probably would say that, but in terms of just overall team and being, just sound everywhere, it's probably the most complete team they've had in a while, which is pretty scary.
Sure. Yeah, well, a lot of times if you watched them in the past, there was a lot to be said for that, because they would have some contentious games in 4-5A, usually would pull away, a lot like LSU would. It was a talent thing. But then they'd get in the playoffs, and sometimes they'd go, sometimes they wouldn't. They'd run up against a buzzsaw, a lot of years, especially probably before you got here, Acadiana had their number.
Yes.
Because they keep the ball away from them.
Right.
They'd run out that clock running the ball. And those big old boys.
It works. It works. They can do it.
Yeah. So, but it's a good point. Zachary is a lot. You hate to use a reference, and I know some people aren't going to like it, but they're a lot like the Alabama of District 4-5A.
Yeah.
They've kind of set the standard, and everybody else is trying to find a way to catch up with.
That's the program, and that's kind of what Coach Beard said. He's like they've established it. They're there, So this is who you kind of want to be, and at the same time we got to figure out a way to beat them.
Right. Right. So moving over to the east side of the parish, real quick, we're going to talk about Albany and Springfield. Springfield's still not quite into district yet because that district's so small. Who do they have this week?
St. Martin. They're going to St. Martin. Now, Springfield's coming off a loss to Pearl River, but it was one of those things when I talked with Coach Servaz after that game, he was kind of like, man, we get the loss, but this was probably the most proud I've been of the team in the complete game that we kind of played. So they're kind of looking to carry that over to St. Martin's. They got to go on the road. He said they've got a really good running back that really is the kind of key to what they're doing. He said we're going to have to try to stop him. And then we keep talking about him every week, but Jatorius Buggett, has another 100-yard game, and he's really setting the tone for that offense.
So moving up to Albany, they are in district. Didn't quite open it the way they wanted to. So who do they have this week?
No, they're going up to Sumner tonight to go play Sumner. So last week was 43-0 against Bogalusa. Just kind of hit some big plays, got going early on them. And they're still playing without key guys. JJ's still going to be out. Doherty's still going to be out. And could be another couple of weeks for him. He hasn't been cleared yet. Seth Gallion and that he's got the collarbone issue, so he's going to be out as well. And he mentioned when I talked to Coach Knight, he said a big part of what Sumner does, they run that wing tee with a few little wrinkles in it, and the way things are working right now, Albany's been having to start some guys who maybe don't have that size that they're looking for, guys that maybe should be really playing JV, but they've had to move them up because of the injury situation that they're having there. That's not a knock on those guys at all. It's just a development thing. And he said that when you look at Sumner, they've got the offensive line to run the offense they run, if that makes sense. So that could be another matchup there where it bears watching on how those fronts are going to work against each other.
Sure. Okay. Well, don't want to move away from sports just yet. Real quick update. Of course, be on the lookout. Cross country is they're closing in on postseason, correct?
It's getting there. Actually got the if I believe I'm looking at the schedule right, the parish meet will be Thursday coming up this week. So
okay,
that's when you start hitting that stretch run, and we're preparing.
Sure.
We'll be there, and I'm looking at some times for especially on the girls' side. Caden Boudreaux's just kept it up. Hannah Linebaugh from Denham, I think in the last race, just set up a school record in the 3 mile on the girls' side. So that bears watching out. So
sure, be interesting to see how that pans out, especially as they all get to compete against each other. So moving back over to Mr. David Gray. We're going to wrap up the lifestyle and news portion of this as we move on into the weekend and let these gentlemen get some rest before they have to go into that wild scenario up there in Watson. We're going to be talking about a few things today. First and foremost, I want to remind folks, please remember, if you have Ida damage, please call the assessor's office. We sat down and did a podcast with him that ran Monday on our Facebook page, so you can go check that out. No, I'm sorry. That ran Wednesday. Please remember, also consider with your families and with your doctor whether or not you should get vaccinated. We had Marshal Joe Shoemate in here. He lost his son to COVID, and he's asking folks, I know that the government is after you to do it, but maybe you should ignore them and consider your family and your doctor. So please remember those two things. Now, getting into some of the things that you have covered this week, we've already talked about the trial, which was, of course, tons of fun, I suppose. Let's talk about schools, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There is, first and foremost, we had a vote pushed because of Ida. That would be the Albany School District. You've been covering that, doing a real good job talking about, the fact that Albany Middle and Albany Upper Elementary are pretty crowded. So tell us a little bit about what that proposal is going to be and why it was pushed.
Yeah, it's going to be a half sales tax proposal along with the millage. So they technically, from what Dr. Gregoire, the school member for Albany, has told me it's going to be 2 separate ballot items that are contingent on one another passing in order to be able to fund this new school. And the school board already purchased land about a mile and a half north of where Albany Upper is right now on Highway 43. It's about 20 acres that they bought, and that's where they're envisioning this new Albany Upper Elementary. And one of the things that Dr. Gregoire kind of told me is, they have no idea how old Albany Upper really is. That it's they know for certain well over 100 years. He's seen some remodeling plans that were dated in 1912, but there's some grandparents who remember their grandparents telling them that it's closer to the beginning of the century. So I mean, saying that the school is old. So, I mean that's basically it, and they're trying to, and they've done some updates to it in the past few years, added other hallways and that sort of thing. But really, with the Albany district growing the way that it is, and they're thinking that the high school might move to 4A in a few years. That's something he told me, that they're really trying to sort of get in front of this overcrowding problem that could, if it keeps growing the way it is, in a few years, they will either have to build a new school, or they're going to have to go to T buildings, which T buildings are really the things that, school leaders don't want to do. They only do them when they have to, because though it's really hard to keep up those buildings because, they're temporary. That's what the T stands for. So that's what the vote was originally supposed to be on the ballot this November, but after Ida, it got pushed back. Governor Edwards' executive order pushed back all of those a month, but because Albany was hit harder than, the rest of Livingston Parish, near that Tangipahoa Parish line, he decided that while people recover, it's just best to push it off to 2022. But he intends to still, put it on the ballot because, like I said, this is sort of a project. He really is, firm in the belief that they need a new school out there. So, like I said, it's going to be on the next ballot, and he's actually going to come in at some point to do a podcast just for him to explain the need behind building that new school.
Oh, good. So
yeah,
I'll
there
get
you
to speak to him. Yeah, cool.
There you go.
Hey, I love it when you schedule them.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about back and forth. Okay. Well, that's going on in the Albany area. Speaking of expanding schools, there is a ribbon cutting next week, correct?
Yes, for 7th Ward Elementary, they had this new classroom expansion, about $800,000 project, and they're doing a big unveiling on Tuesday. So I will be at that next Tuesday.
Okay. What else is going on in the world of news? I'm sorry.
Well, last night was the parish council, and since we're not meeting next week, it's good to talk about it. They passed the river safety ordinance last night. That's kind of been the big hot button topic for the parish council the last several weeks. As people know, this summer, over this last summer, there was 2 people who drowned after launching from tiki tubing in Dim Springs. They drowned in the Amite River, and then there was a few other instances where people had to be rescued just because, after this heavy rain that we had over, last summer and spring, kind of made the Amite River really treacherous to be on. And so the parish council finally passed an ordinance that's going to require businesses that use those, not just tiki tubing, but all businesses that use the local waterways are going to have to show their customers educational video, just kind of talking about the hazards of that river, as well as, just safety tips, that sort of thing. They're going to have to provide life vests to all customers, and now they're not making it mandatory that people wear life vests, but the business has to make sure that each customer has access to a life vest should they choose to wear one. Then they also have to put up signs, just kind of pinpointing the dangerous areas, and also location markers every 1/10 of a mile, just make it easier for first responders in case they are called to be able to locate people. And then there's possible punishments for those who fail to comply with that. But that was the big news from the parish council last night.
And you have one more thing to talk about from the news standpoint, I believe, today.
Live Oak Junior High. People were wondering, there was it was put on lockdown last week.
Yes.
It was. I guess that was earlier this week. Excuse me. God, this week has been.
That court got you, man.
Yeah, that was on Monday. That was just on Monday at Live Oak Junior High. There was a threat that got the sheriff's office received a call from a resident alerting them to threats of some sort on Live Oak Junior High, but As they were investigating, they put the school on lockdown. But from what Sheriff Jason Art said, there was nothing credible found about that rumor. So that was so it sounds like a rumor. I mean, but like they said, they wanted to make sure when it's a rumor involving a school with students and faculty, you have to take that seriously. So they put the school on lockdown, but I don't think it was on lockdown for more than a couple of hours while they investigated that.
Gotcha. And last but certainly not least, you did have a point of lifestyle to cover.
Yeah, we there was a few after Ida, you had a lot of people that were reaching out trying to help, and there was this one organization called LOPA, which is the Oregon Procurement Association in Louisiana, and they came. They had a few representatives, one from Breaux Bridge, another one from Baton Rouge, two of their board members. They came here and they just wanted to reach out to the people of Livingston Parish. They cooked about 400 meals for the sheriff's office, coroner's office, and Office of Motor Vehicles, and they collected a few $100s, or it might have been over a couple thousand. I can't remember the figure off the top of my head, for the Maurepas School, because the Maurepas School was the hardest hit school in Livingston Parish, it seems. So that they collected gift cards and also brought them school supplies, that sort of thing, that they gave to the school resource officer, who then brought it to the school later. So yeah, just more of that Ida relief, trying to help out people. And that's what they were saying. The two people I spoke with, one of them is an organ donor recipient, and the other one, his daughter, was a recipient. So that's kind of their MO. People say yes to organ donation, so we felt like we had to do something to help people who needed help in this sort of situation after Ida.
So be on the lookout. LOPA, a big organization for organ donation, and a very important organization. It's a good thing. I am an organ donor. I tried to mix those up. I'm a Dogan owner. No, I am an organ donor, and I hope, much like the vaccine, I hope you would consider it. Talk with your family about it and that kind of thing. It is an important decision. So we got through it today, gents. So I'm going to let y'all introduce yourself, and we're going to start on the right this time.
This is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the News.
And on the left.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor in the News. Appreciate you guys out there joining us today to listen to this. Appreciate these two guys taking the time on a Friday afternoon to sit down and knock this out. We do appreciate their time, and we appreciate you joining us and taking the time to listen and learn about what's going on in Livingston Parish. Please remember the News is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We hope you have a great weekend, and we will not see you next week, as David mentioned. I will be out of town, but we will see you the week after that. So we will see you next time.